Welcome to Wheel of Horror, the podcast where two best friends spin a wheel once a week, it chooses the movie, and they discuss it. Today we're talking about the 1980 film The Shining, which was directed by Stanley Kubrick. I'm your co-host Alec.
I'm Erik, and with us again is Dom Berger. Dom, thanks for joining the show again.
Oh man, I am so happy to be back, guys. And what a great movie this was.
Dom. Yeah, so this is your fourth one, right, with us?
Yeah. And the last couple, we would talk about the differences between the book and the movie. So the last two that we picked for me, I've gone ahead and read the book along with the movie. So now whenever Erik brings up whatever he's researched, I know what he's talking about.
Dude, you were sending it to us, you're like, guys, I'm blowing through this audiobook. I am going to be so prepared. And yeah, obviously, Dom, you always do your research about movies, but this is a movie that you've seen like throughout your whole life, right? That you've always been a fan of before the books or anything?
Dude, absolutely. I didn't start on Stephen King novels, which I have listened to all of them, every single one. There's like 65. But
Dude, it's
before that, I
crazy.
saw this movie and I was really young because I remember like not being able, and we'll talk about the beginning, guys, but like the beginning of this movie, I don't know if you ever try to throw it on for somebody like late at night, but it almost dares you to not pay attention. There's not a lot of hand holding. It's very different than like what typical horror movies you like our generation horror movies. It starts off with something either real poppy, something to grab your attention.
Yeah.
Everything's going really well and it's setting up really hard for that contrast of when the horror kicks in.
For sure. Oh, absolutely. There's almost always like a kill in the opening scene, and just like it sets the tone of like, oh, like are we gonna meet like this new crew of people that gets killed, and then like a 1 year later sort of thing. Like this one, you're right. It's just like a family driving an interview. Like it's very the opening is just the aerial shot, which is
Yeah,
beautiful.
it's all very
Gorgeous.
beautiful scenics, which is it just goes like we're outdoors. We're not trapped in a hotel. So it has like that like setup too,
Mhm.
where he's free.
Dude, and it's weird because like they're talking about things in the beginning. They have these nice oneers, right? These one shots, and you're kind of set back. You can't really hear them that well. It's like you're spying on this conversation. You're like, should I be paying attention? Is this important? And then all of a sudden, like it's so different that you start to pay attention more. And like I think the reason that this movie resonates so much with me is because like it does a lot of things that are outside the conventions of most horror movies, and it's still like usually when I'm watching a horror movie, I'm like, okay, they're cutting the sound, they're gonna hit you with a sound cue, jump scare. This movie does all the opposite things, and it's memorable because they work so effectively.
Yeah. I guess I just kind of wanted to throw this huge statement out there and see what you guys think, because I guess it kind of brings it all back to what you were saying, Dom. I think this may be the greatest horror film of all time. Not my favorite, not personally the one I watch the most, but I think if you were going to say, like, if someone says, what's the greatest horror film of all time? Not your favorite, not anything like that. I would say this one. And I think it is because of what you were kind of saying, Dom, where it goes against the conventions and kind of sets its own rules, but it still like stands in the same realm, but like almost above everything else. I don't know. That's a huge statement to make.
Dude,
But
I absolutely agree, and I'll tell you why. I'm sitting there watching, and Shelley Duvall, right, who is a great actress, and I know all the lore. I'm sure we'll talk about behind this movie and what Kubrick had to do to like get this kind of performance out of her. But like, you knew that this is a movie that was like, yeah, Jack Nicholson. The cast is fantastic, but directing is really the star of the show. Just like
mm,
everything from the way the camera moves to like the positions, the timing of everything, it's like I'm in a master's class of like somebody who did everything on purpose, and I couldn't be more angry slash impressed at like the lengths that this man went through.
I guess, well, I want to ask you why you were angry, but also to that, yeah, the acting, the writing, I mean, the directing, obviously the set, all of that stuff, but the source material of what it's from, the blueprints are right there for this to be a success. And then obviously Stanley Kubrick coming in, then you've got Jack Nicholson. It's just like it's a perfect recipe for success, but it
Stars
wasn't successful.
stars were aligned for sure for this movie. You got the great
Absolutely.
director Kubrick. You got Jack Nicholson coming off of his Academy Award for One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. You got Carrie was just a huge success in the box office. This is the second Stephen King movie. I think
No, no, no,
Creepshow was
no.
third.
Salem's Lot was 79.
Say yeah, that's right. Okay, so this is the third, and then Creepshow. Okay,
So,
But
Eric, what
yeah.
do you think about Alec's statement? Do you think that this is like I hear you you pulled back a bit. Did you
No,
like
no. No, yeah, it's up there. I don't know. I'd have to be like, "Oh, man, there's still so many horror movies to see," but I feel like this is definitely one of them. I would say it's hard because horror is so broad now after watching all these movies from the wheel. There's so many different there's slasher horror, there's like good story horror, there's paranormal, there's sci-fi. It's like there's an insane amount of horror, but this is top 2 or 3 for sure, I think.
Yeah. I mean, because I think most of the time horror movie kinda gets associated with, like, bad acting and, like, cheap effects and, "Oh, it's easy to make, there's not even recognizable people." This is, like, all the opposite of that. You've got
mm,
literally a director at the top of his career. I mean, the '60s and '70s, Stanley Kubrick could do no wrong, basically. It was just nonstop hit after hit after hit. And then this, it's like, I don't know, I feel like this is one of his last I don't know, people get mad if I say it's like last masterpiece. I know Full Metal Jacket and then Eyes Wide Shut and stuff, but I freaking this movie is you don't get a lot of things
it's
like this.
so incredible. And like you asked me like why do you feel angry? I feel angry because this man knows exactly how to do it. He films that the hotel always lurking in the background, like the bottom third of the frame is just the characters, and then you have the looming walls, or if they're out in front of the building, they're huge. That gives a huge scale to this whole thing. One of my favorite shots in the entire movie is when Jack Torrance is looking over the miniature of the maze, and then it swoops up into an aerial shot and it comes down, and I'm like,
Yeah.
ah, man, for a movie that in the very beginning it's the simplest cuts, there's not like crazy transitions, they fade in and fade out.
Mm.
That one really caught my interest.
Yeah, that's an awesome, very cool transition. I really, really, I mean, I've seen it probably 20 times, but I really watched it this time. It's a movie where I lose a sense of time, where I like, and I think that's on purpose because it obviously goes like Wednesday, Tuesday, and all these different things, interview day. But you really like don't know how long they've really been there for and what they've been doing so much. So I always just kind of feel like I'm just like along for this dreamy sort of ride. But
Me too,
you,
and, dude, like, literally think of each scene, like, whether it takes place at the bar or in that red bathroom or in, you could pick out a shot from that movie from every different new setting they had because it's so iconic. It's so visionary. It
oh yeah.
sticks with you so much longer after you've seen the movie. I see stills from it, and I know exactly what's scene and what's being said.
Why do you guys think it wasn't a success then when it first came out? Like, it's obviously since then become literally one of the biggest horror films of all time, but what do you think it was at the time?
Shelley Duvall doing Popeye.
Might have been, right?
You
At
really
first
that was what it
I think
did?
it came out the same year, but
It did.
I just love that it's like so spectrum of her to go from "Oh, Popeye" to like getting stabbed by an axe. Like
That's what caused The
that's why I
Shining
think
to
I
be a
don't want
per
to go see this movie. I saw Popeye. I don't want to see this. No, no, no.
Oh,
I love Popeye. I got the soundtrack on vinyl, dude. Don't even get me started.
Like, there has to be a reason though, actually, where because, like,
No, I have no
nothing makes
idea.
sense.
That's
Nothing
all I
makes sense
had.
about
That's all I had as a guess.
I mean, like, so say it's early 80s, you like not a lot of 2.5 hour horror movies out that like I mean, it's a hell of a ride, man. Like nowadays it seems a little more tempered, but I can't imagine 40 years ago.
It is long too, dude. It is long. This is what 2 hours and 20 or 25
Two
Yeah,
minutes.
yeah.
25, yeah.
Yeah, no, it is long, but I never feel bored at all for some reason. I just it's so captivating when I'm watching. It's same thing with 2001: A Space Odyssey, same thing with, Clockwork Orange. There's just something about his movies that I can't look away. It's weird.
Dude, yes. So I was talking earlier about the reverse jump scares. Like a good example is when Danny sees the twin girls for the first time, it like zooms in on him and his reaction, right? And it
Mhm,
holds there. And the music swells for that. And we're just watching his reaction. Then it flashes to the girls. It stays on them long enough they turn to each other and walk away. And then it goes back to him and there's no reaction. And
huh.
I'm like, I watched every second of that, and it's the complete opposite of everything horror movies do nowadays.
Is this when they were, like, they came to the game room, or is this when
Yep,
they're in the hallway? Oh, in the
yep,
game room, okay.
game
Yeah,
room.
dude, you're right. Ugh. Yeah, there's a lot of, like, long takes, and one of the things that I noticed, I wanna ask you guys because I feel like Jack gets possessed in this movie. I kind of feel like he's just in this hotel for long enough, but I feel like there's a moment where he gets possessed. I never noticed until this time. You know, obviously
Mhm.
that shot where
He's looking out the
he's
window
looking out
and
the window, but if you, oh my God, Hunter and I were watching it, and we were just like zooming in on his face. His eyes look up for like a second, like the slightest little look up, and then he smirks a tiny bit. And I was like, I feel like that's the moment when he got
Jesus.
possessed
Oh,
right there.
100%. He's and like fucking Jack Nicholson, man. It's nothing like the character in the book. So for him to create that character with Kubrick and to like make those choices, and it's great because everything is like a oneer. So like you really get to see this dude carry you through 5 minutes uncut. And like I honestly, I mean, it's as close as you'll ever be to being there. You know, like I
Mhm.
really dig it.
Yeah. The way that Jack Nicholson played this, I mean, everybody knows like Stephen King didn't like the way this turned out, but Jack Nicholson's performance, I really paid attention to it. This is a guy that just stopped drinking. I feel like he was a hardcore alcoholic. Obviously, we learned about what he did to Danny and he hurt his arm, and it seems like the relationship's not going well. This is a drunk. He's just coming off of drinking. He's probably not completely adjusted to the sober life and all that stuff. And every single fucking thing he says is just jabs at his wife because he resents the shit out of her for this life that he has to live. That's
Dude,
how I watched this movie
He
this
dude,
time.
it was
he feels guilty. He feels bad, but he
oh, it
can't
was
cope with
incredible.
the reality that he did dislocate Danny's arm, and that's killing him.
I think he's the exact opposite of that.
Really? What do
Dude,
you think?
He was so unhappy in his life in Vermont. He did this to his kid. He was drinking a lot. He was working at a school, probably not doing very well there. He's trying to be a writer. He may have just, I don't know, who knows what his relationship with Shelley Duvall is. Maybe you can fill us in, Dom, about the book. But
mhm,
from the movie, at least we don't know anything. So they could have been together a long time. He could have just got her pregnant, was like, oh, I'll marry you, whatever. But he was just a drunk teacher. Then
Mhm.
they were like, we'll get a new life. We'll go to Colorado. We'll get the seasonal job. I'll write that book. We'll turn our lives around. She's like, okay, but you have to get sober. And he's like resentful of that sort of thing
I mean, there's also that scene at the very beginning. Like he seems really annoyed with the kid.
with everything.
With everything, right? But like Danny's like, oh, I'm hungry, and he's like, well, you should have eaten your
Yep.
breakfast.
Oh, we saw it on the TV, like, sort of thing. Like
Yeah.
like, they've had that conversation before where it's just like, "Stop showing him this shit," like, sort of thing. Dude, if you just watch every line that he says, there is some sort of undertone jab at her. Everything.
there's that happening, and I don't know if you noticed this part, but, show Jack Nicholson's range when he wakes up from that dream where he murders them, and
Yeah.
he's completely vulnerable on the ground, right? He's, like, whimpering and whatever. Like, I was like, "Man," like, Jack Nicholson fucking he can bring that creepy, he can do the smile, he can be like a fucking prick, and then he's vulnerable the next minute, and I'm like, "Dude, that's range right there. Good for you."
One quick thing I wanted to bring up, and I don't know if this is like a legit thing, but the hotel's built on an Indian burial ground, and Alec, you said the moment he was possessed is when he's like looking out the window. Is that what you're saying? Was the moment?
I think so, when he looks up
I
slightly.
I think to add to that is right before the Wendy and Danny are walking through the maze, and right before he looks out the window, he's playing wall ball against the like beautiful Native American tapestries, like disrespecting them
Oh,
almost.
yeah.
Oh,
So
Oh,
I
for
yeah.
think
sure.
that was something else. It's like, oh, he's not really respecting the place either.
No.
Oh,
So
no, you're right. And there's that stuff on the wall, and it's really interesting to see because it's super jarring to hear that ball getting knocked up against the wall.
Mm.
But dude, did you guys laugh when when she comes in and that whole like breaking my concentration thing?
Yeah.
Like I remember I used to watch that and I'd be like, damn, like Jack is really like he's really overreacting. But now
Yeah.
I think, hey man, welcome to working from home.
no, for
Well,
real,
no.
for
I
real.
watched that scene so meticulously, dude. Literally, because there's the thing. You know what he's typing? He's just typing "all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy." All work and no play. That's all he's typing, which makes it so much scarier the next time you watch it because you're like, "Holy shit!" He looks like he's actually typing something, but he's just typing the same thing. So then Wendy comes in and she's like, "Hey, hon, I'm gonna make you a sandwich." He immediately rips the paper out of the thing so she can't look at it. And then he rips it up in front of her because he's like, every time you come in here, you fuck it up. You fuck up my concentration. All she wanted to do was make him a sandwich, and he's just jabbing at her again, and
Dude,
it's
yeah.
so it's like he wanted to rip it up because he didn't want her to see that yet. So it's like, oh, it's so scary. And dude, I was really watching it again, thinking about Danny the whole time. Like, imagine this. Your dad. You love your dad. You're 5 years old or whatever old Danny is in this. But your whole life, you're like, okay, my dad's kind of an asshole, but he's still my dad. I trust him. I love him. All this stuff. Then he turns on your family and starts coming out at you with an axe. That must be the scariest. I was just trying to imagine my dad doing that. Like, that must be so scary. I've never thought of it that way until this time.
Dude, and that makes me appreciate the scene where Danny's going to get his fire truck. I remember when I used to watch it, I like, oh, I hate this scene because it's just the two of them and it's like super awkward and super creepy. But like it's a necessity. It's a great. I rewatched it with new eyes. It's so creepy,
You
man.
mean the scene where he comes into the room and Jack's sitting there and they're looking in the
Yes.
mirror? Dude, literally that scene, it's so terrifying. Danny's standing there, not like, hey, dad, like running. He's standing like frozen. And then you just see Jack be like, come over here for a second. And he just like slowly walks over. And I'm like, dude, this guy, he must be terrified of his father. Because it's a very scary moment. He's like, you wouldn't hurt me or mom, would you, dad? And he's just like, no, but I want to stay here forever and ever. Just like the girls said to him earlier.
That delivery where he's like, "You're not gonna hurt us," and like the amount of seconds it takes for him, like you can watch his cogs turning, and
Yeah.
you're like, "Damn, man."
Yeah,
Ugh.
it's real, man. The acting is so good. And the other thing I noticed, there's so many mirrors in this movie. There's so many, dude. And it's like Jack is obviously there's the scene we just talked about where with Danny walking in, but you see him through the mirror. You see the scene with Red Rum through the mirror. You
Mhm,
see when he sees the decayed woman, it's through the mirror. There's
mhm.
another scene where right after when Wendy accuses him of hitting the son or whatever, and he goes to the bar and he has the drinking thing, you see the hallway where he's walking. Every time he walks past a mirror, he just all of a sudden freaks out. Like he just jerks and freaks out and
What?
jerks. Yeah, I never noticed it, dude, but watch right as he's walking into the gold room for the first time and he goes to the empty bar and he sits down. And then right
Mhm.
as he looks in the mirror, Lloyd appears and it's a fully stocked bar. But watch as he's walking down that hallway, there's a bunch of mirrors to the left of him. And you see his reflection hit it. And then all of a sudden he just jolts and freaks out for no reason. And I was like,
Damn,
what is going on with the mirrors in this movie, dude?
dude. Yeah, that scene with the 237, which is 217 in the book, just so you
Right.
know. But 237 where he sees that, dude. I remember because they play that music under the entire scene, like the entire time that Jack is walking back toward the bathroom. Like they
Yeah.
have the violin screeching,
Mhm.
and I remember this is how I know I saw it too young. Like I remember when this came out, I was thinking the naked girl in the shower, and I saw it on TV, like I saw it unedited, and I remember thinking oh, this is the worst because this is super cool, but also there's just so much ominous shit happening. Like what's gonna happen, and it's the worst of every world.
Well, yeah, because I mean, you've got this beautiful woman, she's coming up to you, and then it's just the most disgusting thing when she touches you. So yeah, it's like it fucks with you. It's like, oh, like I want this, and then you touch it, and you're like, oh, this is the last thing I ever wanted. So yeah, it's interesting. God, it's so freaking
Dude,
interesting.
she's still so hot, man. That I remember when I was younger being like, "Oh my god, like this is like one of the few naked girls I've ever seen on screen." And I'm happy to say it, man. She is still holds up.
I mean, that's full frontal nudity in a horror movie. I definitely saw this when I was like under 10 years old. So I'm like, whoa! That was probably one of the first full nudity scenes I'd seen, which
That
probably
and
screws you up.
Risky Business is like another old one where I'm like, oh, well, that happened. Oh wow, out of
Yeah, but
nowhere.
that's followed by fun, not
Yeah,
like
yeah,
immediate,
no, I know.
like
Yeah, not like
rotting fish.
I'm traumatized.
Yeah. Yeah, same thing, man. It's that scene is obviously so memorable, but it has so many memorable scenes. The whole movie is just full of that. I mean, the chase through the maze, that's so iconic in every way. And that's different from the book, right, Dom?
Absolutely. There's no maze in the book. The book, and also like so. I mean, spoiler alert to anyone that hasn't read the book, but the book ends very differently. So Dick survives with the cook.
Yep.
So he survives. Danny's dad, right, is like chored with keeping the furnace under control. So what happens in the end of the book is like he starts to go more and more mad, and at some point, like
Furnace
he starts.
blows.
Yes, well, yeah. So the whole outlook blows up, and that's how he dies. He doesn't die outside; he dies because the furnace blows. But like the whole time, he's like bashing it. So he doesn't have an axe; he has like a mallets for roke. You guys ever know what roke is?
No.
It's like a sport. So like, he's got this like Harley Quinn mallet, and he's chasing Danny around. And in the very
Oh
end,
shit.
the good side of him. So he's a much more empathetic character in the book, right? He's like really struggling with being an alcoholic, and it shows like he makes promise after promise, and just like an alcoholic, he can't keep those promises. So he's
Mm.
like he has a really hard time, and it's I'm sure this whole thing's an allegory for being either an alcoholic or having writer's block. I've heard both. So the Overlook blows up. There's no maze. They have like hedge animals that come to life. It's a little less cool than the movie.
Yeah, that sounds. I heard that before. That sounds kind of weird.
Yeah, but in the movie, poor Dick, man, like
I
he comes
Yeah,
know.
dude.
all the way and then just gets an axe to the chest,
Had
and
a
that's the end of
4-hour
it.
layover. Like,
Wait, really quick. I want to get into this, but Dom, I just want you to answer this really quick. Does Dick even come to the Overlook Hotel in the book?
He does. So he comes
Okay.
all the way back, and then Jack hits him in the chest with that. That's why I brought up like the hammer, because the hammer doesn't kill him,
Ah, okay.
and then the three of them get away.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
So that's
and then it
that's
blows up, and then he
it
dies.
does.
Does he die?
Yeah, Jack dies.
okay.
Wow.
Interesting. Yeah, dude, that's literally like the biggest setup and just the worst delivery with what happens to Dick.
So bad.
Oh my god, man. And that too, like, I, that's the thing. I'm like, Stanley Kubrick, are you trying to like make us like laugh or what is this? Because it's such like a tense scene when you see him
Mhm.
on the phone in Miami, but there's just these naked women all around him. So you're like, what?
Everywhere, all the pictures, man.
Yeah, you're like, why are you doing this? Like, what the fuck?
And you're like, oh, it's just the one in front of him, and then they zoom out behind him, and there's another one.
I know. You're like, okay, like, is this about his character? But it's very distracting and it's kind of really off-putting to the tension of the scene, I feel like.
Oh,
But
for sure. What's his
um
name? Oh shit.
Scatman Crothers.
Thanks, man. I
Yeah.
appreciate that. He's amazing.
Oh my god, dude, he's so good in this movie. I just love his like compassion and also like his fear. It's like he fully understands it because he's been doing it with his grandmother and stuff like that. But like he still is like afraid of Danny, it seems like.
That eye thing he does, like his pupils are massive, man.
Yeah. He's
That
just
shot,
got such a definitive look.
Eric. What do you think? Like one of my favorite like scenes in this entire movie is the bathroom scene, and I don't know what it is. I obviously love the red bathroom, but there's something about that
Oh no.
conversation between the two of them. The levels of Jack understands what's happening and doesn't understand. It's just so interesting to watch.
Yeah, I like that scene, Dom, with Grady or whatever, talking to him. Dick Grady was his name, I think, who
Uh,
helps him get out. He helps him get out of the freezer later in the movie.
yeah, dude.
Grady warns him about Dick.
Yeah, no, I can't remember what Grady's first name is.
Yeah, but he was the caretaker before him.
Yep. Yep.
So
Well,
it's
he
like,
says
oh,
you've always been the caretaker though. Like so it's so
well,
confusing.
this is the 1920s. So the hotel was built in 1909. So yeah, that makes sense. He's been the caretaker for 15 years about.
Yeah, Alec, I don't know. Like they do that a couple times. Like the ending, we'll talk about that later. But like the ending with like the he's in the picture. Like I have no idea what the fuck that means.
I know what that means. This is my takeaway from it is that
Please.
the picture never existed with that, but it's like the hotel, the Indian burial ground now like captured his soul. And like you see it in that picture.
Mm,
So now he's always in that ballroom.
Yeah, I mean that kind of makes sense. There's a couple weird things though because apparently the last like Native American like war apparently took place in like 1890. So like that's a little strange too. Apparently like there wasn't these kind of like attacks then. So I was like maybe that's just like a mistake or whatever. But
Well, it's a burial ground, right?
yeah, but they were saying that when it was being built in 1909 there was like attacks from tribes or whatever on when they were building it. So I was like, "Huh." But anyways, that doesn't matter. But yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I was just like maybe cuz are there
Well,
two
he also
Grady's?
he also died on the burial ground.
Who did? Jack?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So there is your point. I think that that makes sense. But I'm
mm.
asking, are there two Grady's?
No, there's
There's
one.
just one. Okay, so
Yep.
so he's the one guy, and then yeah, I mean that makes sense. So then he would get trapped there. I wonder why he looks so happy, and I wonder why that year though.
Well, that's the year he had his moment where he went back to the what was it, the gold room?
Yeah,
Yeah, the
but
golden.
why July 4th, 1921? It looks like he was at a party and like having fun. So like, why would that be? It wouldn't be like a picture just like him sort of thing, you know? That's the only thing I can think of if his soul was
Well,
trapped.
it could be like a reincarnation of Grady, where he's doing the same thing Grady did. He was the housekeeper, or the hotel keeper, and then he killed his family. Grady did the same thing to the twins.
So
Yeah.
crazy.
Was there any more explanation in the book? Or no, that wasn't even in the book, Dom, was it? When it just goes up to a picture or no?
No, yeah, no, that wasn't part of the end. So, like, let me ask you guys this, not having read the book, because I remember being very confused about this when I watched the movie. You know that scene where Shelley Duvall is running away and she goes up to that room where there's a dog going down on another dude, and they
Yeah.
both just pop up, and then she's like, "Oh," and runs away, right? Just like, wow, that was weird. Do you guys understand that at all?
I
No.
I've heard that it's a metaphor for, like, molestation, that maybe, like, Jack was molesting Danny, and that was, like, a projection coming out. I don't know, though.
No, there's a character in the
Okay.
book that literally like they used to throw these costume parties, and there was like a gay man who used to like dress like a dog because the other guys would like do a thing where they would give him commands and he'd like I don't know if he I don't remember. I didn't get to the end of the 15 hours this time around, but I don't remember if he hooked up with it with any of them, but he's definitely a character from the book that has
Huh.
zero context in the movie, like none. They're like, "Well, that
Right.
guy's creepy. Let's just throw him in a shot."
I mean, it definitely was something that stood out to me as a kid because I was like, "What are they doing? Why are his pants off?" Like, I
It's
was
so creepy looking too, like, just the way they both look at them and not move. You're like, "What the fuck is
and also,
happening?"
like, the mask, like, there's teeth and it's, like, not you can't put anything in there, so you're like, "What the fuck were they doing?" Just, like, rubbing, like, a mask on his dick?
Ugh,
Yeah, it's so creepy, dude, that scene. The last 20 minutes is
li
just, like, nonstop terror.
well, what about the scene where, I mean, notorious for Kubrick asking for 127 takes of the scene where Shelley Duvall is getting backed up the stairs by Jack Nicholson.
Right.
And dude, there are so many choices he makes that I fucking love. I'm so interested to get your take on it because like for I understand that this woman was being abused. Let's get that out of the way. It's torture and I don't think that that is necessary, but her performance and like the things that he was doing like oh my god, dude, when he's like you didn't let me finish my sentence, he's like the amount of time he takes in between is so perfect. He's like, I'm not gonna hurt you. You didn't let me finish. I'm gonna bash your fucking brains in. Like everything he does, I'm like, even the way he drops his voice when he goes, he goes, Wendy.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah, "Give me the bat.
it.
Give me the bat. Give me the fucking bat, Wendy." Yeah, it's crazy, dude.
It's like, did the Lakers win tonight? It's like, no. It's like, oh, we're gonna have a bad night now.
So they made Shelley Duvall do her take, how many times? 100 and
127
27?
takes.
Jeez, that's stupid.
it was just a breaker?
It's horrific. I mean, he did a lot of things, very Hitchcockian on like the way he treated Shelley Duvall. But I'll
Yeah.
tell you, and I know it doesn't justify it. That's not what I'm saying. But that performance, her having a legit panic attack. You saw it in like Apocalypse Now. You're like, I know this guy is actually having a heart attack, but at the same time, it's a fantastic performance.
Oh, yeah, when he, like, punches the mirror? Yeah, he's, like,
Yeah,
losing
dude.
his
In the
shit.
beginning, I'm like,
Yeah.
damn, that touches me. It resonates pretty hard.
Martin Sheen.
I guess the difference with that is, like, Martin Sheen's like, "I'm gonna get drunk and, like, freak out in this room," and then Shelley Duvall is like, "I'm just 31 and I look crazy and you're making me" just but
Hey,
yeah.
hey, hey, Stanley, our lighting guys union. We gotta go. Like, we gotta go, buddy. Like,
Well, another scene that I heard was a lot of takes is the one with Scatman Crothers and Danny when they're talking about The Shining.
Dude,
Apparently that
huh?
took hours and hours and hours, and I've heard this is a rumor, but Scatman Crothers started crying.
yeah, broke down.
Yeah, and he's like, "I can't do this anymore, I can't do this." And then they looked at Danny, they're like, "How are you doing?" He's like, "I'm okay." And they're like, "You're fine."
The fun fact for like I bought, I had rented it on Amazon. And like fun fact, they picked this Danny because he could sit for such long periods of time and focus, and like they just needed someone who wasn't going to break down on set.
Well, really quick, back to the bear thing though. I just want to say, just really quick, did you guys notice in the scene where Danny, the doctor's talking to him after he like fell because he was having the visions of The Shining, and the nurse or the doctor and Mrs. Torrance are there, and there's the scene of him and she's talking, is like, "Who's Tony?" Like asking all these questions. There's a bear right next to his head. Like there's a big teddy bear. It's right there.
Oh no
Um,
shit.
and I mean, literally, it's half the screen. It's Danny's face and then a massive teddy bear's face. It's like almost like a pillow. So it's
Mhm.
right there. Then later on, there's the bear head when she's running. There's like a bearskin rug with a big bear head that she runs over. Then earlier in the movie, when they go into Danny's room, as they're showing them the apartment, and they're like, "Oh, it's a cozy, nice place." There's a picture of like a bear and a bear cub, and they're together. So there's a lot of like bears throughout the movie, and I was like, I wonder if that's why that guy was dressed up as a bear. I don't know.
Oh, fuck. I mean, maybe. There's definitely a lot to do with Eric was saying with like Indian reservations and like
Right.
different pieces of that. Like you see stuff in the pantry. This is all stuff that I was had pointed out to me. Like I did not come up with any of this.
Oh, the
Um,
Calumet thing?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, exactly. I didn't notice that at all. But there's a lot of that going on. And like, dude, when she's in the bathroom, the way they shoot Jack coming in with the axe, the camera movements and how exact they are, I love it, man. It's got like a hard hit to it before movies figured out how to do that.
When I was a kid, like, obviously, I was like, "Oh, this is scary," and when he yells, "Here's Johnny," I was like, "Oh, that's, like, weird." Now, being an adult and, like, understanding the context of, like, what Shelley Duvall is experiencing, it's like her husband has turned on her and her family, he's busting through the door, and the first thing he yells is a catchphrase from a random TV show that he's like, so that's what he's thinking about when he's like, "Here's Johnny!" Like, she must be going nuts. She's like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" Like, sort of thing, but again, really quick, I'm so sorry. Your husband is clearly insane. He somehow got out of the refrigerator room you put him in, and you're not just gonna smash that bathroom window
Oh my
with
god, I was thinking the same. I'm like, try a little harder. Honestly,
anything.
like I would be ripping out, I would be breaking my fingers on
Yes.
like honestly watching her break down. Like I don't know, man. Whatever they got her to that place, like when she's by the door, it's iconic, of course. But
Right.
she did a great job in that scene.
Oh, yeah. It's amazing. So stressful. And then I love how he just kinda gives up when he hears the snowcat. He doesn't give up, but he's more like, "I wish there was, like, kind of like, I'll be back," or something like that, but
Dude,
just her being like, "He's gone," sort of thing, that must be so crazy. I
dude,
don't
one of
know.
my favorite cuts of all time is when he's like going through the maze and it cuts to him frozen in the morning and it's
Yeah.
so quick and I laugh every time.
How does she and Danny get away from him in the book?
They get it the same way. So like
Locks him in the fridge and
no, in the book he's fighting with so there's like Jack Torrance is like a good guy who's trying to recover and this house makes him more and more of like this rage monster. And in the very end he lets Danny get away. Like the good side of him wins and starts smashing himself in the face with that big mallet. And
Huh.
then once Danny gets away, the furnace like he's doing that to stop himself from fixing the furnaces and the furnaces are like gonna blow and then even as the house is about to blow up, like the other side wins and he tries to save it before he fails.
I wanna ask you, now that you've read, I mean, most of the book and the movie, what do you think? Is it one of those classic, "Ah, the book's better."
No. I mean, the
Really?
book is phenomenal, but I'm telling you, Alec, like I watch The Shining and I learn things every fucking time. Like it's a great movie and I learn so much about filmmaking and like the way that you can just like be straight style. This guy controlled every aspect, every push, every pan, like everything needed to be symmetrical. It made it feel like something I'd never seen and I don't think I'll ever see again.
I think you're right. I don't think
mm,
we will ever see that again. It's like because studios take so much control over stuff, it's like there can't be this freedom anymore. Well, I'm glad you read the book. I know they made a 1997 TV remake sort of thing. I never saw that, but I remember my mom watching it and being like, "It was okay. It wasn't as good, but it was much more faithful to the book." Do you guys know about that one?
Nope.
Did you know about it, Eric?
what is this? The
So in 1997, there was a mini series like It on ABC that was The Shining, and it was
Oh, I didn't know that.
oh, yeah, so it's, like, 4 hours long or whatever, and it's much more faithful to the book, and apparently Stephen King's like, "Masterpiece," but, like, most people are like, "Eh, it's pretty tame because it's on ABC," but, um, I saw clips though, Dom, from the ending where these, like, hedge monsters come alive and chase him, and I was like, "I am so glad they went with the other thing."
Oh, me too, man. Like that
Yeah,
that maze, like it, they made it up, but it is a crucial element to that movie. It's fantastic.
yeah, I can't imagine that,
I think it's symbolism too for writer's block. They're
Oh.
playing in the maze, but he's also in a maze in his writing because he doesn't know what he's writing. He's got writer's block, so his mind's a maze.
Dude, you're
Which
absolutely right. He's literally in the room
he's
writing
not in the maze though.
while
Yeah.
they're in the maze. Exactly.
Well, there's 2 quick things I just wanna bring up. I actually really got lucky. I did go to the Stanley Hotel where Stephen King wrote this right outside of Boulder, and it's super cool, dude.
Oh,
It's not where this was filmed because this was kind of, like, filmed in different places and on sets and stuff like that, but it was where he went, where he inspired him to write this, and it's a big, beautiful hotel in the middle of nowhere in Colorado. It's also where they filmed Dumb and Dumber, the bar scenes and when they go to the state that really ended so well.
We landed on the moon.
Yep, exactly. So anyway, I thought that was pretty cool. But the other thing is the sequel. I know, Dom, you've seen it. I don't know if you read the book, but Eric,
I have.
did you get a chance to see it?
It's funny you mention that because I always said I want to watch Doctor Sleep soon, but before I watch Doctor Sleep, I want to rewatch The Shining, and now I just did, so I'm gonna like literally watch Doctor Sleep like tonight.
Okay. Because I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about it, but I will not. I don't want to spoil it for you.
Dude,
I know it follows Danny, right?
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's gonna be a good time. It's a good movie and a good book.
Very different, but also like familiar. It's exactly what you want a sequel to be. That's what I feel like it is.
Okay. I'm
Wait,
definitely gonna watch
without
this.
giving away too much, Alec, did you like I'll say I'll talk to you later. I can't. Yeah.
Oh man. All right. Well, is there anything anybody wants to say about The Shining? I feel like same thing. Like we just scratched the surface of this movie. I want to talk so much more about it.
Dude, I love it. I would talk about so many things because it just like it's such a good movie, and a lot of times you guys like find the good in movies, and this one there's just so much content.
I know. I feel like I'm surprised it took us this long to talk about it, but I do stand by it. If somebody was going to ask me, be like, what is the greatest horror movie of all time? I'd be like, I think The Shining. I really do think it is. Not the scariest necessarily, not the best music necessarily, not the best something necessarily, but I think the whole package, I think it's probably the best.
Absolutely.
We didn't really talk about the music, but I just want to touch upon that real quick. I mean, the music's awesome. It's like deep undertones, slow, but then it has like this part where like you hear like someone screaming, like almost like they're stepping into a hot shower, you know, like like you hear like it's hard to do it, but I like that brings another layer. Like it gets scarier and scarier.
It sounded almost like Native American, kind of like
Yeah,
chanting.
kind of, yeah.
It reminded me of Sinister a little bit, actually.
Yes, dude. Oh, okay. I've been thinking about
That's
it
a good point.
Yeah, that is the itch that I was trying to itch right there. I appreciate it.
And then, dude, I'm kind of excited for it. It's kind of, I guarantee you the internet's gonna freak out. But on July 4th of this year, it's the 100th anniversary of that picture.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, that's gonna be a day.
That's gonna be a day. People are gonna be like,
what are we
uploading
doing?
Pictures. I know.
What are we doing?
we should do a
We're
Dr.
Roaring
Sleep.
20s party. A Roaring 20s party.
Or we could record Dr. Sleep for that.
We could do that too. Definitely.
Oh, that'd be so good.
Damn. Look at that. Look at that. Dom, you in?
Yeah, dude, I've read the book and seen the movie. Let's do this.
All right, Eric. There you go. You got to see it now.
I'm in it. I'm gonna just call you guys Lloyd the whole time as I polish a bottle of Jack Daniels. Like, hey, Lloyd.
White man's burden.
Oh my god. Yeah, dude. All right, we have so much more to talk about with this. Yeah, so let's do a part 2. Let's do the Dr. Sleep follow-up then.
Dr. Sleep party. Like it.
Yeah. All right, well, Eric, you gotta spin the wheel, man.
Yes. Ooh, I gotta pull it up. Wheel. Spinning. Ooh. Sticking with Stephen King with It Chapter 1.
Oh, nice. Actually, I have one of my coworkers jumping on for this one, Kat. So
awesome.
I'll fill her in, and she'll jump on for that episode.
The new one, obviously, right? Because
yes,
yeah, chapter wise, yeah.
All right, Dom, thank you so much, man. This just flew by.
Dude, I have so much more I want to say.
I know. There's so much more to talk about in this movie. But yeah, dude.
Well, let's do the Dr. Sleep one, and we can kind of just continue with this, and then into that, and
so down.
All right, cool. Well, thanks again, man, and we will see everybody next week for It's Chapter 1. Woo!